My phone vibrated during the eulogy. I felt it buzz in my jacket pocket but ignored it. I was sitting in the third row of the church, listening to my colleague's daughter talk about her father, about how he'd taught her to ride a bike and helped her with calculus homework and never missed a single one of her soccer games. Her voice kept breaking. People around me were crying quietly. My phone buzzed again, and again, and again. 4 messages in less than 2 minutes during a funeral. I turned it off without looking. Whatever it was could wait. Some things are more important than work. I had no idea that in those 4 messages, my boss had just fired me, or that by the time I turned my phone back on 3 hours later, my access to every company system had been revoked, or that within 24 hours, the entire production operation I'd built and maintained for 14 years would grind to a complete halt, or that 36 hours after those messages, the CEO would be calling me every 10 minutes, voice getting more desperate with each voicemail, begging me to come back and fix what was breaking. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you about the funeral, about the messages, about the 14 years of work that led to this moment, and about how a company that generated $112 million in annual revenue nearly destroyed itself in a day and a half because my boss decided that firing someone during a funeral was acceptable business practice. The funeral was for a man I'll call Tom. He'd been the senior operations manager at our manufacturing company for 23 years. He was 61 years old when he died. Heart attack. Sudden. One day he was on the production floor reviewing quality reports. The next day he was gone. No warning, no chance to say goodbye. Just gone. Tom had hired me 14 years ago. I was 28, had a degree in industrial engineering, some experience with manufacturing systems, and a lot of ambition. Tom saw something in me, gave me a chance, taught me everything about how our plant actually worked. Not just the theory from textbooks, but the real knowledge that only comes from years of experience. We made precision metal components for aerospace and medical device companies, parts that went into jet engines and surgical equipment, products where tolerances were measured in microns and failure wasn't an option. One bad part could cause an engine to fail at 30,000 feet or a surgical tool to malfunction during an operation. The work was technical, demanding, and absolutely critical. We ran 24-hour production across 3 shifts. Our quality standards were among the highest in the industry. Our on-time delivery rate was 98.4%. Our defect rate was 0.05%. Those numbers didn't happen by accident. They happened because people like Tom built systems that worked, and people like me maintained them obsessively. Before we continue, hit that like button and subscribe to Retribution Stories for daily workplace karma that'll make you believe in justice. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and if you've ever had a boss do something unforgivably disrespectful. We read every comment, and your engagement fuels our content. Tom and I worked together for 14 years. He was the operations manager. I was the production systems engineer, which meant I designed, implemented, and maintained all the technical systems that kept production running. Process control systems, quality monitoring equipment, automated testing protocols, inventory management software, maintenance scheduling systems, supply chain coordination tools. It was complex work. Our production involved 63 different machines, 47 distinct processes, hundreds of quality checkpoints, thousands of individual components. Every piece had to work together perfectly. One malfunction could cascade into complete production failure. I didn't just maintain existing systems. I constantly improved them, identified inefficiencies, developed solutions, implemented upgrades. Over 14 years, I'd built a production operation that ran smoother than anything I'd seen in the industry. Tom trusted me completely, gave me autonomy, backed my decisions, protected my budget when executives questioned costs. Then, Tom died, and everything changed. The funeral was on a Thursday morning, gray day, cold. The church was packed. Tom had touched a lot of lives over 23 years. Current employees, retired employees, clients who'd worked with him for decades, family, friends, everyone gathering to say goodbye to someone who'd been a constant presence in their working lives. I sat there listening to his daughter talk about the father she'd lost, thinking about the mentor I'd lost. The phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't check it. This moment was more important than whatever work crisis someone thought couldn't wait. The service ended around 11:30. We moved to the cemetery for the burial. Cold wind, overcast sky. That hollow feeling you get when you're watching someone you respected get lowered into the ground. The priest said final words. Family members placed flowers on the casket. People stood in quiet groups, not quite ready to leave. I turned my phone back on at 12:15. Immediately, it started buzzing with notifications, messages, emails, missed calls. I stepped away from the crowd and opened my messages. 4 texts from my boss. Let's call him Greg. 54 years old, MBA from a state school, hired as VP of Operations 6 months ago to replace Tom after Tom had his first minor heart attack and the company decided he needed to step back. Tom had stayed on in a reduced capacity, training Greg, trying to transfer 23 years of operational knowledge in 6 months. It hadn't gone well. Greg had corporate experience but no manufacturing background. He didn't understand the technical complexity of what we did. He saw our operation as too complicated, too expensive, too slow. He wanted to modernize, streamline, optimize. Those words became his constant refrain. Modernize, streamline, optimize. The first message from Greg, sent at 10:47 a.m. Need to speak with you today. Call me when you get this. Second message, 10:52. This is time sensitive. Call immediately. Third message, 11:18. We're implementing organizational changes. Your position is being eliminated effective immediately. HR will send termination paperwork. Fourth message, 11:23. Your system access has been revoked. Mail your laptop and badge to the office. Final paycheck will be direct deposited per standard schedule. I read them twice, standing in a cemetery, at a funeral, for the man who'd hired me, who'd mentored me, who'd trusted me to build systems that kept the entire operation running. And my boss had just fired me via text message while I was saying goodbye to him. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet, just a kind of stunned disbelief. I'd been at the company 14 years, never missed a deadline, never had a performance issue, maintained systems that were critical to daily operations, and I'd been fired via text message during a funeral, without warning, without even a phone call. I called Greg. He answered on the second ring. Oh good, you got my messages. You fired me via text during a funeral. I needed to inform you as soon as the decision was finalized. We're downsizing operations, eliminating redundant positions. Your role has been determined to be non-essential. Non-essential? I maintain every production control system in the plant. We're moving to standardized commercial solutions. Your custom systems are too complicated and too dependent on specialized knowledge. We need simplified operations that any qualified engineer can manage. Your position doesn't fit that model. Who's taking over my systems? We've hired a consultant group to migrate us to commercial platforms over the next 6 months. In the interim, our engineering team will handle routine maintenance. Our engineering team doesn't know my systems. They've never worked with the process control architecture or the quality monitoring protocols. If something breaks, they won't know how to fix it. That's exactly the problem. We can't have critical systems dependent on one person. It's a business risk. The consultant group will transition us to standardized solutions that multiple people can support. You're welcome to discuss transition planning with HR if you want to negotiate a severance enhancement. You're firing me during a funeral and offering to negotiate severance? Do you understand how insane that sounds? I understand you're upset, but the decision is final. Your access has been revoked for security reasons. Please return company property within 48 hours. He hung up. I stood there in the cemetery, phone in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. Around me, people were starting to head to their cars. Tom's family was accepting condolences. Life was moving forward, and I'd just been fired via text message with no notice, no conversation, no acknowledgement of 14 years of work. I walked to my car, drove home, told my wife what happened. She was furious. During Tom's funeral? What kind of person does that? Apparently the kind of person who thinks production systems can be replaced by consultants and commercial software. What are you going to do? Nothing. They made their decision. I'll mail back the laptop and badge. I'll collect my final paycheck. And I'll watch what happens when they realize that custom systems built over 14 years don't have simple replacements. I sent one text back to Greg. Understood. Wishing you all success with the transition. Then I blocked his number, blocked the company email on my phone, removed my work calendar, disconnected completely. My wife looked at me. You're really just walking away? What else can I do? They don't want me. They think consultants can replace institutional knowledge. Let them learn. That was Thursday at 1 p.m. By Friday afternoon, everything had started breaking. The first call came Friday morning at 7:30. Not from Greg, from one of the production floor supervisors. Let's call him Ray. Ray and I had worked together for 12 years. Good guy. Knew the floor operations inside and out, but he didn't understand the technical systems. Hey, I know you're not with the company anymore, but we've got a problem. The quality monitoring system is throwing error codes and the morning shift can't run production without quality clearance. Do you know what might be wrong? Ray, I can't help you. I don't work there anymore. I know, but this is urgent. We've got orders due today, and if we can't run quality checks, we can't ship. Just a quick question. Do you remember what error code Q47 means? I did remember. Q47 meant the database connection between the quality monitoring system and the production control system had dropped. Usually happened when someone restarted one system without restarting the other in the correct sequence. Simple fix if you knew the procedure. But the procedure wasn't documented anywhere accessible because I'd been planning to write that documentation and never got around to it. I can't help you, Ray. I don't have access anymore and I'm not an employee. You need to contact Greg or the engineering team. We did. Greg said to call the consultant group. They said they need to schedule a site visit to assess the issue. Earliest availability is next Wednesday. Next Wednesday? Ray, I'm sorry, but this isn't my problem anymore. I hung up. Felt bad about it. Ray was a good guy caught in a bad situation, but I couldn't fix company problems after they'd fired me via text during a funeral. The calls kept coming. Different supervisors, different shifts, different issues, all variations of the same problem. Systems I'd built and maintained were breaking, and nobody knew how to fix them. Friday afternoon, the automated inventory system crashed. This was a custom integration I'd built between our production scheduling software and our supply chain management system. It tracked raw material usage, predicted reorder points, automatically generated purchase orders. Without it, someone had to manually track inventory levels and manually create purchase orders. That person was me, and I didn't work there anymore. Friday evening, the predictive maintenance system failed. This was another custom tool I'd developed. It monitored machine performance data and predicted when equipment would need maintenance before failures occurred. Without it, they were back to reactive maintenance. Wait for something to break, then fix it. Expensive. Inefficient. Exactly what we'd moved away from years ago. Saturday morning at 6 a.m., my phone started ringing. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Voicemail. This is Greg. We're having some technical difficulties, and I need you to call me back immediately to discuss transition support. Transition support. That's what he was calling it. I deleted the voicemail. Saturday afternoon, production stopped completely. I heard about it later from Ray, who texted me despite knowing I couldn't help. The main production control system had crashed. This was the central system that coordinated all production operations. Machine scheduling, process sequencing, quality checkpoints, everything ran through it. The system had crashed before. Rare, but it happened. The restart procedure was documented, but the documentation was on the internal wiki that only employees could access, and I wasn't an employee anymore. The engineering team tried restarting it using standard procedures, made it worse, corrupted the configuration database. Now the system wouldn't start at all. Saturday evening, Greg called again, different tone this time, not demanding, almost pleading. Look, I understand you're upset about how things were handled, but we need help. Production is completely stopped. We have major orders due Monday. Clients are already calling asking about delays. I'm willing to discuss bringing you back on a contract basis to help with the transition. I listened to the voicemail. Didn't call back. Sunday morning, the CEO called. Let's call him Lawrence. 62 years old, founded the company 34 years ago, mostly hands-off in recent years, but still technically in charge. I'd met him maybe 5 times in 14 years. His voicemail. This is Lawrence. I've been briefed on the production situation, and I understand there were some personnel changes that may have been handled poorly. I'd like to speak with you about consulting on a temporary basis to help stabilize operations. Please call me at your earliest convenience. I didn't call back. Sunday afternoon, Lawrence called again, more urgent this time. We have a serious situation. Production has been stopped for over 24 hours. We're facing significant financial penalties for late deliveries. I'm prepared to offer very generous consulting terms to bring you in immediately. Please call me back. Sunday evening at 6 p.m., exactly 36 hours after Greg's text messages at the funeral, my phone rang again. Lawrence. I answered this time. Hello. Thank God. Listen, I need you to come in immediately. We'll pay whatever you want. Name your price. I'm not interested. Wait, please, just hear me out. Greg made a mistake. He shouldn't have terminated you the way he did. We understand that now, but we need your help. Production is completely down. We have 6 major orders due this week representing $8.3 million in revenue. If we miss those deliveries, we face penalties and damaged client relationships. Please. You fired me via text message during a funeral. Do you understand how disrespectful that was? Yes, absolutely. Greg exceeded his authority. He's been formally reprimanded. But right now, we need to focus on getting production running again. What would it take to bring you in as a consultant? I thought about it. Thought about Greg's face when he realized his consultant group and simplified commercial systems couldn't replace 14 years of institutional knowledge. Thought about Tom, who'd have been horrified at how they'd treated me. Thought about the production team trying desperately to fix systems they didn't understand. $1,000 per hour. Minimum 40-hour weekly guarantee whether I work them or not. That's $40,000 per week. 1 month minimum commitment. That's $160,000 total, paid weekly in advance. Silence on the phone. Then, that's extremely expensive. That's my rate. Take it or figure it out yourselves. Can you start tonight? No. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. First week's payment in my account before I arrive. $40,000. If it's not there, I don't show up. Done. I'll have accounting transfer it immediately. One more thing. I report directly to you. Not Greg. He doesn't speak to me. Doesn't email me. Doesn't attend any meetings I'm in. If he interferes in any way, I walk and keep whatever advance payment I've received. Another pause. Agreed. He won't be involved. See you tomorrow morning. I hung up. My wife had been listening. $1,000 per hour? They fired me during a funeral. They revoked my access without transition planning. They let production collapse because they thought consultants could replace me. They're going to pay what I'm worth. Monday morning at 7 a.m., I checked my bank account. $40,000 deposited. Right on time. I arrived at the plant at 8 a.m. Security looked confused when I showed up. Your badge doesn't work. You're listed as terminated. Call Lawrence. Tell him I'm here. 5 minutes later, Lawrence came down personally. Walked me through security, gave me a temporary visitor badge. We'll get your access restored immediately. Greg was nowhere to be seen. I found out later he'd been told to work from home while I was on site. Lawrence didn't want any confrontation. I walked into the production control room. 3 engineers were gathered around the main system console, looking at error messages they didn't understand. Ray was there too, looking exhausted. Nobody had gone home. They'd been trying to fix this for 36 hours straight. Morning, I said. They all turned. Relief washed over their faces. Ray actually looked like he might cry. Thank God you're here. I spent the next hour assessing damage. It was worse than I'd expected. The production control system wasn't just crashed. Someone had tried to restore from a backup but used the wrong backup file. Now the system thought it was running last month's production schedule with last month's inventory levels. Every database was out of sync. Configuration files were corrupted. Log files were so full of errors that the system couldn't even write new errors anymore. Who tried to restore from backup? I asked. The engineers looked at each other. Nobody wanted to admit it. Finally, one of them, a younger guy I didn't know well, raised his hand. I did. Greg said we needed to get production running immediately, so I used the most recent backup I could find. That backup is 30 days old, and it's for the disaster recovery system, not the production system. You can't just swap them. I didn't know. There wasn't any documentation about which backups to use. There is documentation. It's on the internal wiki. I don't have access to that section. It requires senior engineer permissions. Of course he didn't. I'd set up those permissions years ago. Only senior engineers could access the critical system documentation because we didn't want junior people making unsupervised changes. But now all the senior engineers who knew the systems were either gone, like me, or didn't have the technical background, like the ones standing here. I spent 6 hours rebuilding the production control system from scratch, not from backup, from scratch. Reinstalling core components, reconstructing database schemas, rewriting configuration files, testing each subsystem individually before bringing the integrated system online. By 2 p.m., I had production running again. Limited capacity. Only one production line instead of all 6, but running. Orders could be processed. Quality could be monitored. The bleeding had stopped. Lawrence came down to the production floor personally. Can you get us back to full capacity? Eventually, but it'll take time. The other 5 production lines need their control systems reconfigured. The quality monitoring system needs to be rebuilt. The inventory management system needs to be restored. The predictive maintenance system needs to be recalibrated. I'm looking at probably 2 weeks of intensive work to get everything fully operational again. 2 weeks? We have orders due this week. Then you'll deliver them late. The systems are broken. I can't rebuild 14 years of work in 48 hours. He nodded slowly. Looked like he'd aged 10 years in one weekend. Whatever you need, whatever timeline it takes, just get us operational again. If this story of workplace karma is resonating with you, please share it. Hit that share button and help spread the message about respecting your employees. Check out our other videos on retribution stories for more corporate justice. Your engagement keeps us creating these stories. I spent the next 3 weeks systematically rebuilding every system that had been damaged. Worked 12-hour days. Trained the engineering team as I went. Documented everything in excruciating detail. Made sure that if I left again, someone else could maintain what I'd built. My consulting bill for week 1, $40,000. Week 2, $40,000. Week 3, $40,000. Total, $120,000 for 3 weeks of work. But here's what made it worth more than the money. On day 4, I was in the production control room when Greg walked in. Lawrence had apparently lifted the restriction about him being on site. Greg saw me, stopped, looked like he wanted to say something. "You're not supposed to be here while I'm working," I said, without looking up from my screen. I wanted to apologize. I handled your termination poorly. The timing was inappropriate. I should have had a conversation rather than sending text messages. You fired me via text during a funeral. Inappropriate doesn't cover it. I know. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I've learned from this. I underestimated how important your role was. I thought we could replace custom systems with commercial solutions. I was wrong. I finally looked at him. You weren't just wrong about the systems. You were wrong about basic human decency. You couldn't even wait until I was back from saying goodbye to the man who hired me. You had to send those messages during the service because you wanted to look decisive to Lawrence. You wanted to show you were taking action on downsizing. You used my termination as a performance signal to your boss. His face went red. That's not fair. It's exactly what happened. Tom wasn't even in the ground yet, and you were already dismantling what he built. You couldn't even show enough respect to wait 1 day. He left without responding. I heard later that Lawrence had torn into him about the handling of my termination. Told him it was one of the worst management decisions he'd seen in 34 years of running the company. Greg's reputation never recovered. He lasted another 4 months before resigning. By the end of week 3, I had all systems operational again, not just working, better than before. I'd fixed inefficiencies I'd been meaning to address for years. I'd upgraded components that needed upgrading. I documented everything to a level of detail that would make maintenance possible for any competent engineer. Lawrence asked if I'd consider staying on permanently. Full reinstatement. Salary increase. Public apology for how I'd been treated. Whatever I wanted. I declined. I'd already accepted a position with one of our competitors. Better title, better compensation. Management that understood the value of institutional knowledge and the importance of treating people with basic respect. But here's the part that made me smile. The consulting invoice. $120,000 for 3 weeks of work. That's about what I would have earned in 2 years at my previous salary. They paid me in 3 weeks what they would have paid over 2 years, all because Greg decided to fire me via text during a funeral. The company learned their lesson. They implemented new policies about termination procedures, required face-to-face conversations for any involuntary termination, mandatory transition periods for critical technical roles, formal documentation of all custom systems, independent review before eliminating positions deemed essential. All good changes. All changes that should have been obvious before they fired someone via text message during a funeral and watched their entire operation collapse 36 hours later. 6 months after I left, I ran into Ray at an industry conference. He told me the company had spent an additional $90,000 on the consultant group to document my systems and another $60,000 on commercial software licenses that still couldn't replace some of my custom tools. Total cost of Greg's decision: at least $270,000 in direct expenses, plus roughly $2.3 million in delayed deliveries and penalty fees, plus damaged client relationships that would take years to rebuild. All because someone thought firing a person via text during a funeral was acceptable business practice. All because someone thought 14 years of institutional knowledge could be replaced by consultants and commercial software. All because someone valued appearing decisive over actual competence. Greg learned his lesson the expensive way. Lawrence learned why you protect critical employees and why you never let junior executives make termination decisions without oversight. The company learned why institutional knowledge matters and why treating people with respect isn't just about morality, it's about business continuity. And I learned that sometimes the best response to disrespect is to walk away, let them fail without you, and then come back on your terms at rates that reflect your actual value. Because when someone fires you via text during a funeral, they're not just ending your employment. They're showing you exactly how little they value you. And when everything falls apart without you and they come begging you back, you get to show them exactly what you're worth. $1,000 per hour, $40,000 per week, $120,000 for 3 weeks. That's the price of firing someone disrespectfully. That's the cost of discovering too late that some people can't be replaced. That's what you pay when you confuse credentials and consultants with actual expertise and experience. Tom would have understood. He knew that building something complex takes years and destroying it takes minutes. He knew that technical knowledge isn't just about understanding systems. It's about understanding all the edge cases and quirks and workarounds that develop over years of real-world operation. He would have been horrified at how they treated me, but he would have smiled at how they paid for it. And somewhere, I like to think he was watching when I walked back into that plant, on my terms, at my rate, and made them realize exactly what they'd lost when they fired me via text message while I was saying goodbye to him. That's the thing about institutional knowledge. It's invisible until it's gone. It's undervalued until you need it. And it's expensive as hell to replace when you realize too late that you should have protected it in the first place. Rest in peace, Tom. You taught me well. You taught me to build things that last. You taught me to document carefully and maintain obsessively, and you taught me to know my worth. I wish you'd been around to see Greg's face when production stopped completely and he realized that firing me had been the worst decision of his career. You would have enjoyed that.